Hi everyone. So if you have looked at the agenda for our first module, our week 1 module, you'll know that our first item of business today is to go over the course syllabus. You can find the syllabus up in the Getting Started section. It's the last tab in that section. You'll see it pop up right on your screen as a PDF file. If you go up to the little dots up in the right-hand corner next to, you've got the blue button for add or the full window toggle, and then you've got the option to click on it and download it if you would like to download it and save it to your computer or perhaps even print it out. So it's up there in the Getting Started section, very last tab. So if you go back and look at that at some point if you haven't already, there are a few areas that I want to draw your attention to and just make sure that you go back to these items and look at them in more detail. So the first thing that you'll notice on page 1 of the syllabus, at the very top you have the course description, and then underneath that you have the course objectives. I already mentioned this in the course introduction tab up in Getting Started, but this is a composition course. You should be prepared to write quite a bit this quarter. Not all of it will be formal, but you will be writing every week. You'll see the objectives there. We're going to be learning how to work with a thesis statement, how to organize ideas properly in paragraphs, how to support our ideas, how to make stylistic choices with our writing, so avoiding redundancy, using concrete language, getting away from grammar errors, and making sure that you understand the importance of proper submission requirements. So we will be working on all of those things in some capacity throughout the quarter. But just make sure you understand that, composition does indicate writing. But my job is to help you get better at it. So that's the good news. You'll see on page 2, the very first thing on page 2 has to do with the textbook for the class. The title of the textbook is The College Writer, A Guide to Thinking, Writing, and Researching, the 5th edition. We will be using the textbook this quarter. You'll have a few quizzes based off certain chapters of the textbook, and all of the material that we cover throughout the quarter is in the textbook as well. I don't always have a specific quiz for it, but it's very useful to have. It's just a backup of information for you. So please make sure that you either have your own copy of the textbook in some way, shape, or form, or that you make arrangements so that you can get access to the textbook when necessary. I think that's kind of it for page 2. Page 3, this page is very important. The top part of the page 3 lists the grade components and values for the course. So you'll see that there are 5 categories of where your grades come from. The first are the discussion forums. There will be a discussion forum every week of the quarter except for the very last week. So weeks 1 through 10, you will have a discussion forum. They, in total, make up 10% of your overall grade. We also have quizzes. There's a handful of quizzes throughout the quarter. Those make up 5% of your overall grade. We have exercises and assignments. I will kind of explain the difference between the two a little later, but they are grouped together and they make up 25% of your overall grade. You'll then see that we have the essays category that makes up 40% of your overall grade. There are 2 formal essays that you will do throughout the quarter that we will work on. One is a narrative essay and the other one is an evaluation essay. Each of those is worth 20% basically. So together that category makes up a whopping 40% of your overall grade. And then that final exam is worth 20% of your overall grade. But what you need to know about that is the final exam is also an essay. It's just in a timed essay exam in week 11. So those 3 essays combined make up 60% of your overall grade. But that's what we're here for, is to learn how to craft those essays. So that's the big chunk of your overall grade, is going to be proving that you have taken the material you've learned and you can produce that quality essay that we're looking for. At the bottom of this page, the bottom of page 3, you're going to notice the distribution of out-of-class time. You'll see the discussion forums are 10 hours. The chapter readings and quizzes are about 9 hours. The homework assignments are 25 hours, and the essays are roughly 53 hours, for a total of 80 hours. That is the amount of time that you, on average, are expected to spend on the work for this class, the homework for this class. So we will talk a little bit more in detail about the difference between the in-class work and the out-of-class work here in just a little bit, but this is kind of an idea of how the work should kind of pan out for you. And it is just, it is an average, so sometimes it might take you a little longer, sometimes it might take you a little less. And it's going to be different for each person, but this is just sort of the general idea for how much time you'll be spending on things outside of class. Starting on page 4 and going through page 8, you'll see the course outline for the quarter. So this is where I want to talk a little bit more about that difference between the in-class time and that out-of-class time. When you look at the course outline, you'll see on the left-hand side, that column says in-class learning activities. So for instance, for week 1, the in-class learning activities are the syllabus review, which we're doing right now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the online content here in just a minute as well. We're going to talk about the daily journals. You're going to do the pre-course assessment quiz. We're going to talk about the rhetorical situation, and then we're going to talk about how to get started in the writing process. If you notice, those all match up with what you saw on the agenda for week 1, and they match up with the tabs in the week 1 module, all the way down until the very last tab, which is the tab for the homework assignments. So we are supposed to design the classes so that we deliver 4 hours of in-class work and then give you roughly 8 hours of out-of-class work. So when you are on an on-campus class, that's easy. You go into class once a week, and while you're in the room, the instructor goes over 4 hours worth of material and exercises with you, right? And then they give you some homework assignments that should take you up about 8 hours of out-of-class time to complete. We are doing this in an online format, though, so it's up to you to decide when you're going to accomplish those in-class learning activities. But you should treat them the exact same way that you would if you were on campus in the classroom. And then the right-hand column are the out-of-class assignments. Your final tab in every weekly module is the homework assignments tab for that week. So these items in this column match up with that tab. So you've got 4 hours of work to do in the weekly module. And then when you get to that homework tab, that's when you know, okay, now I'm moving into the 8 hours of out-of-class assignments that I'm supposed to work on this week. You just have the freedom of doing it whenever you want that week. It's not in a building. Some other things to look at here in the course outline, just some dates or times to keep in mind. If you scroll through, you will notice that in week 4, you are being assigned the rough draft of essay number 1. So that rough draft is going to be due at the beginning of week 5. I will look over it during week 5, make my comments, and return it back to you by the start of week 6. You might even receive it before week 6 starts, but I will grade them as they get submitted. Not really grade, but I will comment on them as they get submitted. So you should have your feedback from me by the start of week 6, and then you will do your revisions, and the final draft of essay number 1 will be due at the start of week 7. In week 7, the rough draft of the second essay is assigned. So you'll have that rough draft submitted by the start of week 8. I'll look over it, give you my feedback by the start of week 9. You'll make your revisions, and the final draft of the second essay will be due by the start of week 10. The final exam essay is in week 11. You will log in that week and you'll go to that tab in the week 11 module. It will take you to the quiz area of the course, and you will have a certain amount of time to choose your prompt and write a 5-paragraph essay on it. So it will be graded pretty similarly to the way that the first 2 essays are graded. The only difference is you won't have a rough draft, but there are technically 3 essays for the course, and that's kind of a general idea of when you'll be working on each of them. Moving on from there, oh, and don't worry, you'll get plenty of reminders throughout the quarter when things are due. But moving on from the course outline, starting on page 9, you'll see we get into the attendance policies. Well, actually first at the top of page 9 is my contact information once again. So another place where you can find that. But on page 9, you've got the attendance policy. Remember the general attendance policy, the 20% rule. So if you accumulate absences totaling more than 20% of the scheduled class meetings, you might be removed from the class. And that does count for online classes as well. So if you go a certain amount of time without having logged into the class and submitted work, then you might be dropped from the class. And please don't forget about triggering attendance. So remember, you have to submit some sort of graded item by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. to get counted as present for that week of class. That means you need to either post a discussion, you need to submit a homework assignment, some sort, or maybe one of the in-class exercises, some sort of graded item that will trigger your attendance. Reading my PowerPoints, looking at my handouts, watching my videos, none of that will count as triggering attendance. It has to be a graded item. So please make sure that you remember to do that by 11:59 p.m. every Thursday. It doesn't have to be all the work for that week, just one item at least. If you by chance forget to do that by 11:59 on Thursday, contact me, first of all, but don't just let the rest of the work be left undone. Still do the homework and all the activities for that week. Because just like if you missed one class on campus, you wouldn't just not do any of the work, right? You would be counted absent, but you'd still be responsible for submitting all the things that were due. So that stands for an online class as well. But get in touch with me regardless, so that way we can talk about the reason why you didn't, trigger the attendance, and we'll go from there. On page 10, we get into the academic integrity policy, which is about plagiarism. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment. On page 11, there is a little section there about the Learning Assistance Center. So just because you're taking an online class doesn't mean that you still can't take advantage of the resources available to you on campus. At any time, you can go to the Learning Assistance Center and get some help for this or any other class. Let's see. I hope you should have received an email that told you about the online learning labs that they're doing this first week there at the Learning Assistance Center. They are Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. There's one lab from 10 a.m. to noon, and then another lab from noon to 2. So those 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, so April 1st, April 2nd, and April 3rd, there are 2 different times where you can go to the online learning lab. And then on Thursday, April 4th, there's one lab from 2 to 4. Please take advantage of that. They are there providing these online learning labs to help you figure out how to navigate the online classes and answer any questions you might have. So if you are unsure of anything, of course you can ask me as well, but this would be a nice way of going and having someone in person show you everything that you need to know. Let's see. Let's go to page 13. That's where we get into my instructor policies. The respect policy, this is an online class, so really the only issue we may have with any kind of disrespect might be on the discussion forums. So please just remember to treat each other fairly and with respect when we are posting and responding to each other in the discussion forums. My attendance policy, I don't have anything different than what the college lays down for you, but you are expected to go through the 4 hours of weekly in-class work and then complete the 8 hours of out-of-class assignments. If you have problems doing that, let me know as soon as possible so that we can figure out how to get you on track. My late work policy, you should probably assume that you can't turn in anything late. However, we all know that life happens, things come up, and you can't always submit everything right on time. So first, just let me know what's going on, keep me in the loop. But you have everything available to you, so you work on this whenever you possibly can. And if I have agreed to accept it by a certain date, even though it's late, then, just make sure you get it to me by our agreed upon time. And, I just don't want anybody to fall behind. That's the biggest fear in this class. One thing I will say though is that I will not accept any late work at all past week 10, right? Because we're just getting down to the wire and we need to be focused on that final exam essay, and that's it, right? My plagiarism policy that you'll see on page 14, that just indicates that, everything that you do for this class should be your work, right? We will talk about plagiarism more specifically throughout the quarter. There will be a section where we talk about APA format and research, so plagiarism will come up again. But everything for this class should be your work, and it should be something that you're submitting for this class and that you have not submitted for other classes. So please don't run into the temptation of taking things off the internet. My job is to help you get better. It should not be that much pressure. So I don't want students feeling that panicky that they are making that mistake, that they're going to the internet and not doing the work themselves, when I am just more than willing to help you get to where you need to be so that you don't feel that panic set in. You'll see the last little section here of the syllabus is the method for evaluating students. So we went through this a little bit when I looked at the categories and what percentage of your grade each category makes up. So we talked about the discussion forums already. Please don't forget that your first post, your response to my prompt, should be posted by Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. This will help you trigger your attendance too. So if you're not going to do any of the other work until the weekend, that's fine. But you know that to trigger your attendance and to get credit for that first post, you got to do it by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. You will then respond to 2 of your classmates, excuse me, and those 2 responses need to be posted by Sunday at 11:59 p.m., just like all the rest of your homework. You can do it before, but make sure it's done by that time. We talked about the quizzes. They make up 5% of your overall grade, and most of them are based off of the chapter readings. There are 3 technical quizzes that are actually the pre-course assessment, the post-course assessment, and the final exam essay. Oh, and a practice essay. But the traditional quizzes will be based off the chapter readings. So the exercises and assignments, that's one I want to focus on for just a second here. They make up 25% of your overall grade. So exercises and assignments, these count, these are your in-class exercises. There might be a grammar thing that I have you do during the in-class section of the weekly module. It's also the homework assignments that I give you. Anything that's not a quiz, a discussion, or an essay would fall into this category. The daily journals you're going to do, any of the graded exercises, any of your homework assignments, they're going to fall under this category. It does make up 25% of your grade, but the good news is that anything that falls into this category gets graded for effort, right? So even if you really missed the mark on it, if you tried, you're going to get full credit. I'll simply give you my feedback and point out where you kind of missed the mark and how you could improve upon it. But anything in this category is graded for effort, so it takes a little bit of the pressure off. And then we already talked about the essays in the final exam. You know, you've got your 2 formal essays. Both of those will have a rough draft involved that I will read, make comments on, and you'll use that feedback to make some revisions and turn in a final draft. Those rough drafts have to be submitted. The final drafts have to be submitted. The final exam essay has to be submitted. So all of those components have to be submitted in order to pass the class, which they make up a total of 60% of your grade, so that kind of makes sense even just with the numbers. But it doesn't matter what your grade is sitting at. I need both rough drafts, both final drafts, and the final exam essay to be completed in order for you to pass the course. Some final thoughts. I just want to make sure that you are keeping it in your head that this is a writing class. Be prepared to write. I know it's not always going to be your favorite thing to do. I try to make it as, well, I try to make it as enjoyable as possible, but at the very least, I try to make it as painless as I possibly can. And that's why a lot of stuff is very low risk assignments. You know, do it, put forth the effort, you'll get the credit for it. I want you to also please keep in mind that whole thing with 4 hours of in-class work and 8 hours of out-of-class work every week, because you're going to look at these weekly modules and you're going to think, this is a lot of work. You know, this is a lot of homework. That's only because you have the freedom of doing it at home. You're not going into a classroom every week to receive that 4 hours of in-class work. You are doing it on your own. And then you're also doing the regular homework on your own. So if you can just remember that, it will help you get through this material and kind of differentiate between the 2 types of work that you'll be doing. Don't forget about triggering the attendance. Thursday, 11:59 p.m. must be a graded item. I've tried to help you out with that by linking it to the discussion forum and telling you to post your first response by 11:59 on Thursday. Hopefully that helps. And then if you have any questions or concerns or technical difficulties, let me know as soon as possible. I will do my best to help you, but if I personally can't, I will figure out who you need to speak to get the help that you need. So I hope the syllabus review was informative for you, and you guys can go ahead and move on to the next item in the week 1 module.